Hey guys, welcome to Reform Nerd. Before we start, I do want to give you a spoiler alert. I am going to be talking about the Demon Slayer movie. Now, if you haven't seen the movie up until this point, I really don't know what you've been doing. But anyway, just in case you haven't seen it, I am going to be talking about it. And today I want to talk about Rengoku and his final moments in that movie. Now, I did go see this movie with a couple of buddies of mine. And to be honest with you, as I'm watching the movie about midway through, I'm like, this is kind of slow. Like, what's going on? I mean, don't get me wrong. The graphics were amazing and the animations were great. But for me, the movie was a little bit slow. But midway through, about 3/4 of the way, I'm like, this seems kind of pointless. Like, what's going on here? Like, something major has to happen. Right, like somebody's gonna have to die here, and I didn't know who or what was going to be happening. But the minute that I saw that Rengoku got out of the train, I'm like, oh man, they're gonna kill this guy. Now, for those that are not familiar with the anime, these are guys that have been trained to essentially kill demons that are plaguing the earth, or at least Tokyo, I think, maybe. Alright, don't kill me in the comments. But anyway, so these guys hunt demons. And Rengoku is the flame Hashira. So essentially, he does a bunch of like fire techniques. And he always has a smile on his face. So he's always very upbeat. And he's always very charismatic. So anyway, so he gets out. And if he's facing this demon that is extremely powerful. I mean, the most powerful demon that I think we've seen up until this point, outside from like the main villain. So he fights him, and as he is fighting, you're seeing that they're going back and forth toe to toe at the beginning, but slowly but surely you start seeing a gap build between these two characters. So eventually we as the audience come to the realization that this guy is either gonna lose or he's gonna die. And you also see glimpses in the character that he knows that he's probably going to die. But that doesn't stop him. We never see him flinch. He just continues to fight. And at least he wants to be able to save his friends in the process. So this battle goes on. Amazing animation. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of flames going on. And it gets to the point where they're both at a standstill, where he's about to cut the guy's neck off. And the other guy has essentially a fist inside the guy's stomach. Now, what happens here is that the sun is about to rise, so the demon panics and he essentially runs away from the fight, leaving us with a Rengoku that is essentially about to die. The thing about Rengoku that reminded me of Stephen, a character from the Bible, was his resolve. He never took a step back, and instead he pushed forward even though he knew that the odds were against him. So Rengoku reminds me of Stephen for a few different reasons. So for those of you that are not familiar, Stephen comes into the picture in the book of Acts. And we find out that Stephen has been gifted by the Holy Spirit. And he has been going around performing miracles and performing signs. Now, it seems like Stephen built up a few haters along the way, because we see that these other guys, these other Jews, come in and try to debate Stephen. But we're told that they're no match for Stephen's wisdom. So Stephen ends up beating them in whatever argument they were having. Now, these guys are very sore losers. And what ends up happening next is that they start getting different people around the city to speak wrongly of Stephen and to tell lies about him. This ultimately ends Stephen in front of the high priest. And he is being accused of blaspheming not only against Moses, but also the temple. And it gets to a point where the high priests are now asking Stephen to defend himself. So once it's Stephen's turn to speak, he starts by telling the Jews essentially their origin story. He starts at Abraham and he ends all the way to Solomon. Now, he tells them the entire story, and I won't go into all the details because it would take too long for this video. If you guys do want me to do that at some point, I'd be happy to just, leave a comment. But essentially, once it gets to Moses, is where we see some of the attacks from Stephen happening. And it's not necessarily attacks, but there are some truths that these guys take offense to. And the first one is that when Moses brings the Jews out of Egypt while they're in the desert, they end up betraying their God by having Aaron build a bunch of other statues, and they start worshiping all these other fake gods. And he continues on to tell the story of how David gained favor from God, and also how Solomon ended up building one of the greatest temples that anyone ever built for God. And remember, one of the things that Stephen is being accused of is that he's blaspheming against the temple. But he brings them to one of their patriarchs, and he tells them even Solomon knew that God could not be bounded by a temple. And in fact, and he quotes the old scriptures and tells them that God considers the earth his footstool. So the whole point that he's making here is that God is so great that he is not going to be just in that temple. Like, you're not going to confine God just to a temple. And after this point, Stephen pretty much says one of the greatest insults that I've ever seen in the Bible ever. And I'm not going to be able to do it justice, so I'm just going to read it for you. So in Acts chapter 7, verses 51 to 54, it says, "You stubborn people, you are heathens at heart and deaf to the truth. Must you forever resist the Holy Spirit? That's what your ancestors did, and so do you. Name one prophet your ancestors didn't persecute. They even killed the ones who predicted the coming of the righteous one, the Messiah whom you betrayed and murdered. You deliberately disobeyed God's law, even though you received it from the hands of angels." And then 54 says, "The Jewish leaders were infuriated by Stephen's accusations, and they shook their fists at him in rage." So what happens next is that they take Stephen outside and they stone him to death. One of the most amazing things about this chapter is that Stephen, when he falls on his knees and is about to die, he prays to God and asks that he not hold this sin against them. And then he dies. Now, the reason why these two characters come to mind is because they showed great resolve for what they believed in. Rengoku fought till the end bravely, and Stephen himself as well spoke the truth of God without fear to a crowd that he knew would take vengeance on him for speaking the truth. And this serves as a great reminder for us to always stand up for what we believe and to always stand up for truth. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and click the like button, subscribe, and share this video. If you have any comments, if you disagree, put those comments below. If you agree, also put those comments below. If you want to check out any other videos that I have, here's one for you. And as always, remember, we must persevere.